Capcom themselves seemingly don't want to go back to that classic survival horror. That's where the indie scene really takes its turn. And trust me, this one took a huge swing and didn't miss. This is Tormented Souls. Don't go away. Classic Resident Evil is kind of a weird genre within itself. Survival horror with somewhat static camera angles, and for some reason, one or another, it worked perfectly. But for clones of the early Resident Evil style games, I say the same thing about boomer shooters. They're pretty easy to replicate because the gameplay isn't really that complicated, but it's also really hard to master. Tormented Souls starts out great. It's a quick, short, to-the-point intro, and you're automatically in the game running around this weird-ass mansion, medical, hospital, whatever you want to call it, within the first 2.5 minutes of the game. It reminds me of a non-Nintendo version of Luigi's Mansion. And once you get sort of settled into the game, I quickly noticed how great the progression was. For about a 9-hour experience, Tormented Souls does a really amazing job of just sort of drip feeding you items that you need to slowly unlock the mansion with. This is such a hard thing to balance because if you give a little too much ammo or a little too much this or a little too many hints, then it sort of feels easy. And because it's not that complicated, it could feel like just a walking simulator. But if you underhand the player with ammo or too hard of puzzles, you can make the player frustrated. So you really got to find that golden line, and it's a very thin line for classic survival horror. And Tormented Souls really masters this. I mean, there wasn't really one time in the game where I thought, where do I go now? What do I do now? But at the same time, I didn't have an excess amount of ammo or health or a crazy amount of puzzle items. I always got something and I remembered back, oh, it goes to there or this goes to there. And if I did receive a puzzle item that I wasn't really knowing about where it goes, there's always something around the room that'll give you a hint. I got this can of anti-rust spray and I was like, what do I do with this? But there's a picture sitting on a chair in the room of a rusted out vault that you sort of saw in the first 20 minutes of the game. So 7 hours later, it's kind of like, okay, I didn't really remember that. But if you pay attention to your surroundings, the game does a really good job of not hand holding you, but giving you very subtle hints about what to do.
Oh, I know what to do now.
While you're walking around this mansion, figuring out how to get out of here, you are going to be put up against some interesting enemies. And what you use to fight these enemies is kind of genius. I was expecting the usual pistol, shotgun, maybe something else, maybe another thing. Here, you basically get that. You basically have a pistol, you do have a shotgun, and then you get a melee weapon. But these are cleverly disguised as instead of a pistol, it's a nail gun. And instead of a shotgun, it's two pipes that Caroline has somehow worked up to be a shotgun. It's just that extra something that isn't really copy and paste, but still makes you go, oh wait, this is kind of cool.
Kind of looks like a kind of cool shotgun, not gonna lie. Can only hold one in the chamber.
The enemies in this game are cool, mostly for their design and stuff though. The gameplay elements, kinda not that interesting. Now there's not really a lot you can do other than making a whole different enemy type. Most enemies you will hear coming and you'll shoot them, and that's about it. It's the exact same for bosses. In fact, there's really only 2 bosses in this entire game. 3 if you count the ghost guy, but that guy's kind of my biggest complaint about this game. About 3/4 way into Tormented Souls, you are hit with this cutscene. And immediately I thought, oh, boss fight, this guy's going down. I legitimately spent 4 shotgun shells and 2 electric charges on this guy before I was like, he's probably not gonna die. So I left the room, did some stuff, came back, and he wasn't there. So I was like, oh, maybe he did die on that last shot. Turns out he's just a stalker enemy, and you can cheese him by exiting the room and entering the room back again to make him despawn pretty much. I really wish this really handcuffed me through the rest of my playthrough for ammunition wise. I was fine. I still ended up being the game on the same save I had, but I really wish after the first shot or the second shot, the character might have like voiced a line like, it doesn't seem like he's taking any damage. Maybe there's another way to kill him. And that would have cued me in to be like, okay, this is a stalker enemy. And for me personally, I hate stalker enemies. I want to bathe in the ambience of the room and do some puzzle explorations and check everything, you know, sort of make my way through. It's kind of like with the stalker enemy there, it's like trying to watch a movie, but you have a fly in your face 24/7. It's just like, it's just annoying to me. So following suit with other classic Resident Evils, gameplay pretty simple, but that's only half of it. The other half is puzzles. And I will say, these are insane strength puzzles. If I was on a scale of 1 to 10, these are like an 8 or 9, maybe even a 10 on some of them, honestly, for puzzle difficulty. But it's not impossible. Because these are so challenging, the reward for completing them without a guide or anything is insane.
Honeycomb for the bee. Hold up. Hold the fuck up. This is... Okay, this has gotta work now. It has to be one of these. This could be alien, right? That could totally be alien. Fucking go! No way, dude. Holy shit.
These puzzles are so well done. The majority that you complete will be completed with a light bulb moment of seeing it click in your head and being like, wait a minute, that's gotta be it. Just an example of what a puzzle could be in this game. There's a clock that you have to complete a puzzle of, where to set the hand, the minute, the hour, and the second timer, and there's also a date on the side. I'm like, what is this? You quickly figure out that there are 3 paintings around with swords all pointing in a direction, and you figure out, well, that's got to be the time. And then there's a picture depicting the day that our Savior arrived. And I'm like, this looks like some Christian, like, Jesus thing. Like, Savior arrived? Are they talking about, like, Jesus Christ's birthday? So I go and put the time in that correlates with the swords and put in December 25th, and it worked. And that's just a small example of how pretty awesome these puzzles are.
Oh my fucking god, no way. I cannot believe that fucking worked. Holy shit, this is the longest shot in the dark on a puzzle I've ever had in my life.
Now, story, I kind of didn't want to intro the game review here with the story because it's good. I feel like there was actual thought put behind the characters involved and how it works out in the end, albeit it's a little bit predictable, and I feel like it's a little too front in your face. Moving on to a much more important category presentation here. Classic Resident Evil clones and early Resident Evil live and die by their presentation, and Tormented Souls nails it. Dual Effect Games pulls no punches when it comes to how Tormented Souls visually and auditorily represents itself. Every room in this game does a good job of differentiating itself from one another, and a huge helping hand to that is just how filled these are. There's so much stuff in these rooms. I couldn't even imagine like developing this, how much like items and objects you have to plant in each room. But there are dozens and dozens of items thrown about these rooms that it just adds onto the character of each one. The menu and UI elements are often underappreciated in games, but here, pulls no punches once again. It's a really nice, clean, unique menu. I've never seen anything like it. The same goes for the weapon design here. Using a nail gun in place of a pistol sounds good. Everything's nice about that. Shotgun I have mentioned before, but I didn't highlight how it sounds and reloads. This was my first reaction to using the shotgun for the first time.
Come test out the new shotgun, boys. Let's see if this thing really kicks. Put your head up! It's a one shot? That was kind of sick. Yo, the reloads are insane too. What the fuck?
The music in Tormented Souls is fantastic. I don't remember which video it was, whether it was a ranked or a review, but in one of my Resident Evil videos, music is just as much of a character as the room itself and the character in it. And although a tiny nitpick would be that high octane, sort of adrenaline, enemy design sounding soundtracks happen when there are no enemies sometimes, just for the sake of trying to make it seem scarier. The 95% of the time, you are greeted by a great ambient soundtrack that adds to the spookiness of this game. But more importantly, this game really nailed its save theme to the point that I entered a room and I coined it the save theme room before I knew this was the room you could save in. Now, how impressive is that for Tormented Souls music design, that you can know which room it is based on the soundtrack before even seeing the room?
Save room.
I can't put pen to paper and exclaim how impressive this game does presentation enough. In fact, I don't think you can do it. There is no button you can click to automatically add more edge of your seat feeling or more ambiance or anything like that. So yes, this does look like a classic Resident Evil style game with the camera angles all. 10 times more importantly, this feels like it.
Is that chocolate? I was literally about to say.
So overall impact, my personal opinion and thoughts in this game, this was awesome. Because I played through the original Resident Evils a huge amount of times, it was just nice to go through a survival horror game where I had no idea what I was expecting. And while I can sit here and think, yeah, okay, there are some very tiny nitpicks. I'm not a fan of stalker enemies, they're very annoying. I blew half my ammo on them. The game animations are pretty janked, to be honest. The voice acting is probably subpar, honestly, and it's not helped by the fact that their mouths don't move when they talk, so that doesn't help it.
Danced around their dead, willing their bodies to...
Every enemy you deal with is the exact same gameplay-wise besides the final boss, of which there are only 2, maybe 3 bosses if you count the ghost. But these are all very tiny things that you can basically forgive because this isn't a AAA developer. Because at the end of the day, all those things are completely overweighed by the incredibly tight and rewarding progression of the game, and the superb atmosphere that this game brings into each room that slowly adds up to the mansion as a whole. And for survival horror, that's what's important. So overall, 8.6 out of 10. So that's it. Tormented Souls is done. Caroline has left the building. It tried to get across how awesome and how fun classic survival horror can be when, on paper, there's not much happening. Puzzles, a little bit of combat, manage your items, not much. But at the end of the day, it's awesome. And the funniest part is, all the tiny nitpicks I had, those are the type of things where you look at it and say, okay, in a sequel type scenario, those things can be buffed out. It's a very, very small developer here who clearly has the heart and passion for survival horror and game developing. And it's like, yeah, in a sequel, those tiny nitpicks could probably be buffed out. And if you take that same heart and passion and that great progression line, that great balance, those great puzzles, and you put into a sequel, you could really have, like, I'm talking, I would be very excited for that. So you can imagine my shock when I looked up and saw this on YouTube.
Count me in.
I genuinely had no idea that Tormented Souls 2 was already like in the works and like a trailer's out and coming out this year. So you can expect that I will pre-order that for sure and play it day one. That is how excited I am. But for now, I'm your host, Save Planet Entertainment. Hope you enjoyed this review. Peace out.
Shock this thing. Now the button's stuck. This whole fucking thing's trashed. Shut tight, button stuck. Can I listen to inside? No. Can I stab the window? Can I staple the window? Okay. Okay, this guy's... My ass, where'd you come from? What the? I did not see that motherfucker.
What is up? I know what you're thinking. You're only here for the bonus Easter egg soundtrack I put in at the end of every video. But did you also know I have a donation page under Buy Me a Coffee? Donate whatever you want to my channel and I'll put half of that back to an environmental charity. So that's that. Enjoy the music. Peace out.